We look forward to play a very important World Cup qualifier match tomorrow. And we extend a cordial welcome to the players, staff, traveling supporters, and the roughly 20,000 supporters we hope will come to cheer for Norway. Football matters, perhaps more than ever when the world around us is facing difficult times. And that is why the Norwegian Football Federation, and also everyone, have a responsibility to ensure that Ullevål remains a safe and respectful arena for everyone who comes to experience the game tomorrow. It is a football match we're playing, a very important one for both federations. Nevertheless, the backdrop of this game is special and well known to everyone here. Neither we nor any other organization can be indifferent to the extreme humanitarian suffering unfolding in the backdrop of this game. Earlier, we announced that we will donate the proceeds from the match to Doctors Without Borders, an organization that saves lives on the ground in Gaza and provides critical medical aid. This is part of a 2-year partnership that started and extends beyond this game. For us, football and the possibility to reach the World Cup are hugely important. But in a broader perspective, football becomes secondary. There is now a glimmer of hope. The first phase of a peace plan has been signed. And our sincere hope is that the bombing of Gaza will stop, that humanitarian aid, food and water will reach those in need, and that the Israeli hostages will return safely home. Much work remains before we can speak of any lasting peace, of course. My job and the job of any leaders in any organization now in this initial phase is to give this plan energy and momentum. But right now, our focus is, of course, the World Cup qualifier game tomorrow, and it's important for us to protect our players and coaching staff so that they can focus fully on football. And finally, that we all respect fair play, the game, both teams, and everyone involved tomorrow. And now Karl-Petter will say something more practical about the game tomorrow. And thank you for reminding us for not qualifying to World Cup in actually over 28 years. So. It's a very fair question. I want to answer very properly. You say that why do we engage and what my motivation on just this case. And we are not particularly engaged in just this case. We work very hard since I was elected, and maybe before that, but that's the time I know, to be very engaged in human rights and humanitarian stance. So it started with the Qatar case, migrant workers, and then we had to spend very much time after that case speaking a lot to the Norwegian Muslim society that felt that when we spoke about humanitarian rights and migrant workers' rights, we felt it was global rights. It was directed towards them, which it was not. It was not our intention. And then we learned that when we speak about humanitarian stance in a very multipolar political backdrop, we will be read into the outer pieces or political context, which is not our intention. So we spent a lot of time, and I think we fixed it. And after this game, I think we also have to speak a lot to the Norwegian Israel supporters. Our intention is not to be part of a political conflict. It's about a humanitarian stance and also a rules-based system. So we've had engagement in this case for a while, and it's not been about the attacks or the war, or it's been about teams playing from occupied area as a breach of FIFA statutes. I don't want to speak about that today because that's slow rules-based work that has nothing to do with Israeli Federation, or it's a general engagement we have. We see in the world now that the rules-based system is being pushed back. And it's something I was elected on, to care for humanitarian values and rules-based system. And to your question about Doctors Without Borders, which is also a very fair question, and we have learned over the weeks that it's been a provocation to someone, which is 100% not the intention. We started a strategic cooperation with Doctors Without Borders for a while ago. We talked with them for over 2 years about this. And when we drew Israel, or after we drew Israel, but when the game was getting closer, we decided that we will donate the money to a humanitarian cause. And it became very natural that it was Doctors Without Borders. And the reason why it's just this game and not other games, it can also be other games, but this game is, I would say, twofolded. The first is that we wanted a full stadium. We wanted people to come to the game, and we knew that the backdrop would be very difficult, sensitive for very, very many people, and we didn't want to make profit of the game. We wanted people to feel that they could come to the game, cheer for Norway in a very important sporting game, but at the same time give money to humanitarian cause, which we did not intend to be very provocative. It's a humanitarian cause giving aid to people on the ground. And why we choose this game is because this is the game where this backdrop will reveal itself. It will be around the stadium. This is the game where we're transparent countries. We meet the press all the time. So either we can say no comment, or we have to answer questions. So the reason why we speak a lot about this case now is not because we want to. We want to speak about the game, but we cannot stop speak about the same we've done for 2 years, 4 years, because it's coming a game. So we felt it was very natural to donate money to humanitarian cause, not political cause, save lives, and it's needed and it's ongoing. And although we condemn, and we have condemned all along, the horrific attack on 7th of October 2023 on Israeli civilians, they don't need financial aid from Norway. So it's actually a practical decision on where the financial aid is needed. Does not do things behind the scenes. So let that be an answer. Of course, we don't have the power to move Europe. Everybody observed that it was movement in Europe. And I think everybody understands that it's not a Norwegian initiative. But we don't do things behind the scenes, so maybe that's why the Israeli Federation might... the way to us is an easy one, because we have been outspoken for 2 years, which I understand. But the shallow or deep analysis would show that after the report of UN, and I don't know what momentum, I honestly don't know the momentum, but it happened, and the momentum did not come from Oslo. I think that's very easy analysis to do. We've been here all along, and it's not an aim for us to ban Israel. It's the rules-based system, and all cases like that we try to engage in. And we know that we have to fight hard to be credible in that. I think it's obvious if you watch us in different cases, but when you come from such a trauma and from a side, we have deep respect that it will be tainted and painted in those colors. To your question about the Israeli Federation not liking and that we haven't condemned the 7th of October, So I'm not going to speak to Moshe or any of Israeli colleagues through the media. We speak face to face. We spoke yesterday. We will speak later today. We will meet tomorrow. It's a colleague in the EXCO, which I meet a lot, by the way. So I think it's very important to speak face to face. But I have to correct some things. And one thing is that I didn't reach out on the 7th of October, which I did in a heartfelt message. He replied, a friendly, good reply. And I did it again on a 1-year anniversary, and I did it again on Tuesday. I do it every time I meet him, not out of politics, because I do feel deep sympathy of the horrific attacks of 7th of October 2023. And of course, we can never understand those traumas. And I also understand, maybe if Norway had the same, and someone from a different federation tried to speak about something else, but hits this trauma, we would also find that very difficult. So I have nothing but respect for that. But as I cannot understand the 7th of October, maybe neither of us can also understand the trauma of the Palestinian people after that. So I think it's important for everyone, even though we cannot be in the situation, take the responsibility we have to move and act when it's breaches of laws or when UN calls us to do some action. Then we come in dilemmas. But I hope the future will bring that we can engage in something, humanitarian breach of international law, without that being interpreted as you don't condemn another serious breach of international law. That you can say that both are grave, grave breaches of international law. So let there be no doubt. And we said it many times before also, but because the attacks on Gaza had been ongoing, I guess that's why it's been more and more lifted as the main message. But for us, it's easy for us to understand that the trauma for the Israeli people paints what we are saying. Yeah, it's a time for everything. So to go in a deep judicial analysis of Russia versus Israel the day before a game, I will try to avoid, being mindful of people's emotions. I've spoken about it for years, and I will continue, so please reach out after the game. But just be mindful of the timing. I will just say that the cases are, of course, different. Maybe I'm a bit colored by my background as a lawyer and a judge. All cases are different, but you still have to work very hard to not have a to have a continuous and consistent practice of law, and when we don't have really principle in the international football community to when to act when you go into genocidal dimensions or occupation or sudden wars, then it's left for politics and media. So for us in Norway, it's been more of trying to establish discussion and principles for football to go ahead, and that's been our agenda in that case, not to make it equal between Russia or Israel, but to have the conversation, because those two cases have been in Europe context, of course, two that has stood out for I would say war reasons. We are like all people very happy that it's a peace agreement, and I think it's very important that we give it energy and momentum. Of course, we are not in those conversations, but we all have platforms, so it's very important that the left impression here is that we are very happy for that. It's more important than the game tomorrow, 100%, that the bombs stop and the hostages come home. You know, this is, and when we have spoken before about sanctions and suspension, it has been about breach about FIFA's law. Not that we don't care about the humanitarian and breaches of international law, but that's a political issue. So I've been very mindful to speak about breaches of the FIFA statutes, UEFA statutes, and that should be a continued discussion. The momentum that happened weeks ago, that discussion about Israel participation, that I didn't lead those. You know, someone else needs to answer to what happened there. But for Norway, it's never been an aim to expel or to boycott anyone, but to work consistently with rules. And the peace agreement, hopefully that will fix or at least stop this very immense situation. But the discussion of the principle of how to handle those always different, but those dimensions of suffering will go on in football. We've had it before also with different situation in Europe and in the world earlier. And I think that discussion, we will try at least to give energy to that kind of discussion. And it's difficult because then if you're the only one giving energy to that discussion, you will be maybe interpreted politically as part of the conflict. But we take it, we respect it, and we will continue to engage. I respect your question. I cannot answer it. I can just answer for the Norwegian Football Federation's engagement. We have been engaged in very many principal cases related to UEFA in the past and related to the football responsibility. So the reason why we also engaged in the Qatar case was because it was a World Cup there, not because we want to point fingers at Qatar. It was about migrant workers, LGBTQ people coming to the stadiums, etc. And now we have been engaged in this case because it's been a case, judicial case, raised for FIFA towards a UEFA country. So it might sound a bit robotic, but that's the answer. We are not foreign ministers, but I fully respect your question. I cannot answer it in any other way. We've had no other cases related to. We had many cases: Russia, Israel, Qatar. Many political cases in my 3 years. Enough cases, enough political cases, but it could have been more, of course.